Hello, I'm Alex and I've been learning Estonian for 5 years. I didn't want to make this video because I felt that I'm not satisfied with my progress. But at the same time, this is the exact type of video that I really enjoy watching. So here is my progress video. I want to do two things in this video, which is to show how I've been learning Estonian for the past 5 years and also evaluate my skills. I know some of you are just going to skip to the speaking part and the part where I talk about the B1 exam, so here's the timestamp for you to do that. For those who are still with me, let's begin from the beginning. Once I accepted my invitation to study at Tartu University for my master's, I started studying Estonian immediately in June of 2020. At the time, I was already into language learning because I picked up this book, Fluent Forever, for $2 at a bookstore, and that got me into language learning. At the time, I was learning French, and I was actually quite happy to be able to study another language from a completely different language family. So for the 3 months in Australia before my studies, I was mainly using Speakly, and also I found this textbook, the only copy in Australia, in a Melbourne bookstore, and I brought it back to the fatherland. For the 2 years when I was studying my master's in bioengineering, I didn't have like one study method, but rather I had multiple study methods and I would swap them out from time to time. So I wrote down a list of the different ways that I was studying, taking children's books from the library and using Google Translate, watching Õnne Days, because that was the only TV show at the time with Estonian subtitles, and again using Google Translate, reading my grammar textbooks, and when I find words I don't know and I think they're interesting to learn, I add them to my Anki deck, which I failed to make in the first semester because I didn't understand how cases work. Weekly italki tutoring, mainly to explain things that I didn't understand, and also it wasn't possible to search it online. I had Christina as a tutor at the time, and I highly recommend, and it was very helpful to explain grammar. I was using the Speakly app. I had a group study weekly where we would read chapters from Inagu Eesti. I did 3 semesters of Estonian class at the university, went to Estonian speaking practice, had language exchange on Hello Talk, and listened to random podcasts without knowing pretty much anything. I would say 50% of my studies was like with the children's book, with my textbooks, watching Õnne Days, and then taking those words, putting into my flashcards, and then studying the flashcards. That would be like 50%. And then the other 50% would be probably all the mix of the random other study methods I was doing. If I had to estimate how much I studied, I would say probably 2 hours a day on average, but I'm not really sure because it was quite a long time ago. This is one regret I had, that I didn't make a video like this sooner, because I don't really remember how much I was studying. By the way, I don't really recommend using Google Translate if you can, because Google Translate is pretty bad. And if you can, I would recommend that you find something Estonian that's also translated to English or your native language. That way the translation is much better. I would say this is definitely the fun period of language learning because, one, you're a beginner, like you make a lot of progress and you feel this progress really quickly. And secondly, you're learning all these new cool grammar concepts, and you're also seeing these new words and you're wondering, where does this word come from? Like, is this related to this other German word? Like, this was a very fun period. After I graduated, I moved to Tallinn, and there was about 9 months where I was unemployed. There I tried out the Estonian exam, and I also was studying quite hard during this period. I would say like 2/3 probably of my studies involve reading books and then taking the words I don't know, putting those into my Anki deck, and then studying those Anki flashcards. I checked how much Anki card I added. It was 1,600 words, which sounded like a lot, but it was only like 7 new cards a day, 7 new words a day, which is quite doable. And then the other 1/3 of the time, it would be going to language cafes, doing language exchange, reading my grammar book, watching random TV shows, and I was also trying out Linguist and then also doing Speakly again. If I had to estimate how much I was studying, I would say 4 hours a day. But again, I'm not sure and I really regret not recording my time. So in November in 2020, I did the B1 exam. So this is my result for the B1 exam. I got 69%. I've been studying for 2.5 years. That's an okay result. For me, it's okay. Unsurprisingly, I did really well for the reading, did good for the writing, okay for the listening, and just completely failed on the speaking part. I've heard some people ask, how long does it take for you to study for a B1 exam? If I had to estimate the hours I spent at that time, it would be 2,000. But again, you have to know that I didn't study for the exam. I studied with study methods that I enjoy, and I was reading stories and topics that I enjoy. I did spend I don't know, maybe 30 hours looking at what the exam is going to contain and prepared for that. But overall, the majority of my studies, I wasn't doing it for the exam. Then in March of 2023, I decided to do the B2 exam. Unfortunately, I got 50%, which is not a pass. The passing grade was 60. So the reading was okay, the listening was weak, and I just completely failed on the writing and speaking part. I don't know what to say about this period of study. It was fun, definitely. And I made a lot of progress in a short period of time. Of course you would if you're doing so much in this time. Maybe I should have done more, but at the same time I was looking for work, which is very stressful because they would kick you out of the country if you don't find work. Overall, this was probably the most I've studied in such short period of time, and it was cool to make a lot of progress. In April of 2023, I got my job, I work in English, and there was just a sharp decline in the amount that I was studying. Because of work, because of personal life, because of other hobbies, I studied a lot less. And yes, I have other hobbies besides studying Estonian, like studying French or studying Chinese. Jokes aside, I was doing a lot of other things, and if I had to estimate how much I was studying, maybe it was 1 hour a day on average. I say average because I'm more of the person that studies 5 days out of 7 rather than being able to study every day consistently. I mostly continued with my book method and Anki, reading books, finding words that I don't know and adding it to my Anki deck and then studying those Anki decks. So in the first year of work, I managed to add 1,000 words of Anki cards, which is less than 3 words a day. It was very little. And then once I got to 4,000 words, I kind of quit Anki and I just went and do a bunch of just random study methods. I was just reading and hoping that I can learn the words in context. I was trying to use some bilateral translation methods. I was using listening and reading. So in September of 2024, I decided to listen to a children's book that I can read pretty well. When I read it, I can comfortably read it basically. And what was shocking to me was that I can only pick out 2 or 3 words a sentence. I couldn't even understand the basic plot of a book that I've read, a book that I can read comfortably. There was just this huge difference between my reading skills and my listening skills. I had this misconception that because Estonian is very phonetic, that if you just read enough, that you can magically pick up the listening skills. But this was when I found out it was not true. So at this point in time, I knew that I had to work on my listening skills, so I watched these videos explaining how to do that. From what I can understand is that I need to watch videos or listen to audio without subtitles at its normal speed and put 100% of my focus into the video or audio. And that is going to bring up my listening skills to my reading skills. This was also the time I decided to start tracking the amount of time I was doing on my phone. So I was watching YouTube videos, no subtitles, 100% of my focus. And occasionally when I'm like walking or at the gym or doing chores, I would listen to a podcast, trying to put as much attention as I can on that. I would say the first 30 hours was just like torture because I didn't understand everything. I didn't understand anything. It was so boring. And from my experience when I was tracking my time, about 50 hours of video watching and 100 hours of podcast listening. Some videos actually was entertaining. One of these examples is the YouTube Millennials. They do a lot of food reviews, reviews of random things, of random places. They speak quite like normally, and also their content has a lot of like visual cues, so it's quite easy to understand. But if I were to watch like a vlog where someone just describes something with like no visual cues, yeah, I still couldn't understand it at that time. And then after about 100 hours of video and 200 hours of podcasts, like the amount of things that are entertaining enough, like I don't understand like, everything, but they were entertaining enough to watch. That like expanded. But we're talking about Estonian YouTube, so that's still a tiny selection of things that I can actually watch. So in December, I also started to do private tutoring again, this time quite intensively, like once and twice a week. I heard other Estonian learners recommend Grete as their tutor, and I would as well. You can follow her on Instagram. I wanted to start private tutoring for a couple of reasons. One is I wanted a place to practice my conversation, and having a teacher that speaks at your level is like super helpful. I also wanted to improve my listening skills, and also we were preparing for the B2 exam. In March of 2025, I did the B2 exam again, and I failed. I got 57%. 3% from passing. So here are the results individually compared to the last B2 exam I did 2 years ago. So you can see the biggest improvement was speaking was a fail to a satisfactory. During the tutoring, we would practice the topics and the questions related to the exam. Reading went from satisfactory to good. No surprise there because that's kind of my main study method. Listening stayed exactly the same. On the exam, I didn't improve. But I know that I improved on my listening because I was doing this huge like listening thing. And I know that there are videos I watch at the time of the exam that I could not understand 2 years ago. Who would have thought that watching two guys rank every kohuke is not going to help you for the exam? So writing was a fail and it's still a fail. But what's interesting here was that if you look at each of the skills individually, I made improvements in my speaking and reading, and that is more than 7%, which means I somehow wrote even worse after 2 years. At the same time, it kind of made sense because I don't write anything in Estonian like ever. So, yeah. So that's been like how I've been studying Estonian for the last 5 years. So let's get to the fun part, the skills evaluation. So last year in September, I was recording my time and to see how much I was studying. So last year I had 295 hours in total, and only 18 of those was considered speaking practice. Yeah, that's 6% of my study was focused on speaking. So yeah. So this year so far, I've logged 306 hours of study. Much bigger improvement. There's 51 hours of speaking practice. So that is 16% of my time speaking. I wanted to demonstrate my speaking skills and my speaking experience as honestly as possible. And I'm not a fan of those videos where people just read off a script because that's not speaking skills. That's just reading off a script. So I went on Discord and called one of my friends who is a native Estonian, who's not a language teacher, so that's perfect. Then I went on ChatGPT and just said, give me multiple questions from A1 to C2. Remember guys, it's okay to make mistakes because someone in the comment is going to correct you, and that is YouTube engagement.
Oled valmis küll, alustame või?
Okay, jaa.
Mis on sinu lemmikvärv?
Must.
Must on su lemmikvärv. Miks must?
Siis must sobib minu väga hästi ja sobib. Like must riided on väga neutraalne.
Isegi su profiilipildil on must. Alati on sul vist must riided.
Mida?
Et su Discordi profiilipildil on isegi mustad riided.
Jah, mul on ainult mustad T-särgid.
Muud sul vist ei ole, jah. Kus sa elad?
Tallinnas.
Tallinnas?
Ma ei ole siin. Ma olen 3 aastat Tallinnas elanud. Jah, sama.
Kus sa enne elasid?
Mida?
Kus sa enne elasid? Enne Tallinnat? Enne kui sa Tallinnasse tulid, 3 aastat tagasi, kus sa tulid?
Jaa, Tartus.
Tartus olid? Ja kui kaua Tartus?
2 aastat.
2 aastat. 5 aastat koos siis Eestis?
Jah, 5 aastat kokku.
Mis su pangakaardi PIN-koodid on? Kui tihti sa spordiga tegeled või trenniga?
Ma üritan 2 korda jõusaalis käia.
Nädalas?
Jah, nädalas. Vähemalt 2 korda, aga ma tahtsin rohkem minna või ma tahtsin vähemalt õhtul pärast söögi jalutan ringi.
Okei. Aga sa spordiga ei tegele?
Praegu ei.
Okei. Kuidas tähistatakse tähtpäevi sinu peres? Kuidas tähistatakse tähtsaid päevi sinu peres?
Tähtsapäev nagu...
No tähtsad. Sünnipäev.
Sünnipäev või jõuludupäev. Perega, kas sa küsisid.
Kuidas tähistate? Mis te teete?
Kas ma tähistan, kas küsimus on, kas ma tähistan, kuidas ma tähistan perega või? Jah,
kuidas, mis sa teed perega? Või kuidas, kui üksi või mis sa teed?
No kui ma elasin perega, vanemadega, sünnipäeval me sõime restoranis. Ja kingitus tavaliselt me ei kinginud. Aga kui ma olin laps, ja ma sain kingitusi. Aga jõulupäeval jõuludel me ei ole usulikud.
Ei tähista.
Ja me ei tähista, siis on lihtsalt puhkuspäev. Tavaliselt me külastasime minu onu pere, kes elab ka Austraalias. Või ma tähistan oma sõbradega. Ja nad on ka, nad pole ka usulikud. Jah.
Selge, arusaadav. Kuidas saab töö ja eraelu tasakaalu hoida?
On väga raske tasakaalud hoida. No näiteks ma ei tööta nädalavahetusel ja ma ei mõtle töökohta. Ma üritan oma tööd lõpetada enne nädalavahetusel.
Enne nädalavahetust.
Enne nädalavahetus. Ja no praegu tööd on hea.
Okei, ja mis on kõige keerulisem otsus, mida sa oled elus teinud?
Küsimus on väga üldine.
Noh,
mis on keeruline asja ma tegin.
suur otsus.
Mida?
Mis on suur otsus, mis sa oled teinud elus?
Suur otsus ma teinud. Korda palun, mis on suur otsus?
Mis on kõige keerulisem otsus, nagu valik, mis sa oled elus teinud, oma elus?
Okei.
Mis oli raske?
Jah, ma mõtlen. Kõige keerulisem osa. Ma arvan, et ülikooli oli väga keeruline. Jah, ma käisin 5 aastat ülikoolis. Ma ei tea, kuidas vasta.
Aga näiteks, et sa Eestisse tulid, kas see oli raske otsus?
Jah, oli keeruline, sest ma koolisin COVID ajal.
Väga hull.
Jah.
No, see näiteks oli üks raske otsus.
Mida?
Nii, aga lähme viimasele kategooriale. Väga hot topic. Ole valmis. Kas teadus ja religioon võivad omavahel harmoonias eksisteerida?
Kas see on see?
See on see üks.
Okei.
See üks. Kõige raskem. Kas teadus ja religioon võivad omavahel harmoonias eksisteerida?
Kuidas oli?
Kas need kaks, kas religioon ja teadus võivad omavahel olla? Kas need võivad hakkama saada? Kas need võivad harmoonias eksisteerida?
Võivad.
Sest religioon vaatab ühele poole, teadus vaatab teisele poole. Nad ütlevad.
Arvan, et teaduse eesmärk on arvestada, kuidas maailma töötada.
Kuidas maakera töötab või maailm või maa?
Kuidas maailm töötada. Siis vahepeal teaduse avastus on vastuoluline religioonse vastu või jah. Siis ma arvan, et ei.
ei saa jah
ei saa, kui teadlased arvastasid midagi religioon vastu, siis mis nad mis on usulikud inimesed, usklikud inimesed teevad, kas nad ignoreerivad avastust.
Jaa, okei.
As you can see, like I have a lot of trouble with like normal speech and normal speaking, especially for like understanding. And to me, it's like I think of speaking as like two factors: is like, do you understand what the person is saying, and are you able to respond? And for me, it's like I get stuck more often already in the understanding part that I don't even know what I'm supposed to say because I don't understand what the sentence is. Also, you can see like I make tons of mistakes on my speaking because I don't practice this, and trying to output and without practice, like that's what's gonna happen. Like I'm not gonna like stop and think too long because then the person's gonna be waiting like a whole minute for me to generate one sentence correctly. And I think here it really captures like this is most of my experience when I'm just talking to a native person. And of course, like I can order things and ask simple questions at the store. And occasionally, like I meet people where they speak more slowly, more clearly, and we can talk about our lives, our jobs, our hobbies. And it's nice to have these moments, but they're more moments, right? They're not the majority of the time. So let's move on to reading. So reading, unsurprisingly, is my strongest skill because majority of my study has been reading and using Anki deck from the words that I've read. And in order to rate my comprehension, I'm going to use Refold's ranking of comprehension. So you can see it on screen. It goes from 0 to 6. 0 is basically understanding nothing. 1, you understand few words from time to time. 2 is few words per sentence. 3 is like half the words per sentence. 4 is understanding the story. 5 is being able to read comfortably. And 6 is automatic. You can pause the video yourself and look at the scale in more detail. So recently I finished a teenage novel called Perks of Being a Wallflower. I've read this book like 7 years ago. Like I understand the main plot, but I don't remember the details. So this teenage novel was about 4 or 5 level of comprehension. So a lot of time it was like easy to read, a lot of times I needed to focus, but I read most of the book without any like translation, so it was very satisfying. I would say as well this book is like really easy to understand because it's written as letters by a single character, so the writing style is very consistent, and also it's very like spoken speech, like someone is writing letters to someone. And also chapters are about 3 pages to 5 pages long, so it was like quite easy to get through each chapter. The second book I'm reading is I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. I've also read this book like 3 years ago. Again, I remember the main plot, but I don't remember the details of each chapter. I'm using this book as more of an intensive grammar understanding tool because I have the English version as well, and I use it to compare like how the grammar works, and also as a way to take words and put it in my Anki deck because I'm addicted. I would say this book is like a level 4 comprehension. What I do is like I read the chapter without looking at the original text, and I can understand like what's going on. Like I miss words, right? But I can understand what is the main event of the chapter. And I use this book as like a way to study grammar and to learn new words as well. So I would listen to the audio version and then just see like what new words I want to learn and also how the grammar actually works. And also this book is very similar to the other one. Like each chapter is like 3 to 5 pages long, and it's also, written from a single person's point of view. and it's about like everyday life, so the vocabulary is quite useful and also simple. I also tried reading like random news articles or random opinion blogs, and I would say like it's like a level 3. Like I don't understand much. And I think it makes sense because most of the time like I'm reading books. I'm not reading articles online, so I don't know the vocabulary, I'm not familiar with the grammar, so I kind of get stuck there. The other thing that I read a lot is Reddit, and I would say the level of comprehension there is 4. So, like, I can scroll through Reddit and understand what people are saying without translating. But did I really spend 5 years learning a language to read about people complaining about chocolate prices and Coca-Cola names? Next is listening and watching. Let's talk about listening skills. As you know, I've been watching a lot of YouTube and doing a lot of passive listening. I would say there's some YouTube videos that are like level 4 where I can, if I focus, it's entertaining and I can follow the plot. Like I've mentioned before, Melenzio, this channel, they do like tier lists, food review, reviews of random things. They talk like everyday language, I would say. And also there's a lot of like visual to what they're doing, so it's quite easy to understand. In terms of podcasts that I really enjoy, there's Mix Mitte. It's 2 Estonians, they live in Australia, and they talk about their lives there. I know the context of Estonia and Australia, so for me it's easy to understand, and also they're talking about their everyday life experience, so it's using like, everyday vocabulary. And my favorite channel right now is Lazatech. It's a channel that talks about various different topics, and their length is like 10 to 20 minutes long. It is perfect for learning. So the host is reading off a script, so you're going to get like full and clear Estonian sentences. And it's not like a level 4 for me because depends on the topic. Like sometimes it's a level 3, sometimes it's a level 4. But the thing is, it's very entertaining. You get to learn about all of these different topics. And if I like the topic, I turn on YouTube's auto subtitle and I just take some words there and put it into my Anki deck so I can better understand the video. I've also tried listening to like other podcasts where they bring in like a special guest who's a scientist or a professional of something, and these podcasts are like 1 hour to 2 hours long, and it's a level 3. Like I don't understand enough. It's not very entertaining for me because of my lack of understanding. And also it's a podcast, it's unscripted, people talk with like a lot of filler words, like sentences are not full sentences, so I don't really listen to those as much. I would definitely stick to like podcasts with like 2 people, they're talking about everyday life, so at least you can understand, right? I do not have an outro, so here it is. Hope you enjoyed this video. It took a lot of time. I am planning to make more updates over time, but given my rate at which I make videos, I'll probably see you next year. Alright, see ya.